All right. Welcome back to the show, guys. I'm Bobby.
And I'm Eden.
My beautiful wife, Eden. And together, we're Pure Positivity. This is where we focus on helping people build deeper, healthier relationships with their pets. And today, we're super humbled and pretty excited to have a guest on who has had a massive impact on how we see canine health. Rita Hogan. She's a world-class canine herbalist, but more than that, she's someone who truly listens to dogs, to plants, to the natural rhythms of healing that so many of us have forgotten. If you've ever wondered how to support your dog beyond just reacting to the symptoms, how herbs actually work with the body instead of against it, or how we can return to a more instinctive way of caring for our animals, you've come to the right place. So today we're going to dive into her work, her philosophy, and some of the wisdom that she's gathered over the decades that she's been doing this. So Rita, welcome to the show.
I'm so excited to be here. I'm really glad that you guys have asked me to come on.
Yeah, we're really grateful to have you here today. Just gonna jump right in here. Just one of the first things that kind of stood out to me in your book was that in your book, by the way, guys, amazing, the Herbal Dog Handbook by Rita Hogan. Go check it out. We'll have some links in the bio and all that stuff. But the thing that stood out was your childhood dog Susie lived to be how old?
Well, we know it's 24, at least.
Wow.
But it could be 27. But my dad, who has passed away, would be the deciding factor there. And he would know, but my mom can't remember. But we know it's at least 24 because she was still alive when I went to college. And she was there before I was born. She was there before my sister was born.
Wow.
So she's at least 24. She's at least 24.
It was a shepherd collie mix, so it wasn't like a small dog.
Shepherd collie mix. Yeah.
That's a really beautiful thing, and it seems like that's like almost impossible today.
Yeah, and it wasn't impossible then. My late partner, their dog, I think his name was Reefer Madness. Up in the 60s, and their dog lived until I think like 23.
Yeah.
And and got hit by a car. So I think it was hit by a car. Don't quote me on that, but I think it was hit by a car. I remember that didn't get put down for a health reason. I'm pretty sure they got hit by a car. But that was the normal thing. It was normal.
Yeah.
And dogs were geriatric when they hit 15 or 16, and now they're geriatric at 7.
Yeah.
And their expectation is, between 11 and 16. Dogs who make it past that are like, cutting edge, phenomenal, like, oh my God. And the sad thing to me, and one of the reasons why I wrote the book, is that we are being conditioned right now, and it's so subtle, and I'll explain why in a minute, but right now we're being conditioned that a dog is winning when they pass away at 10, that they are winning if they're 12, and that they are geriatric when they're 6, 7, 8 years old, so that all of the misgivings and failings of modern veterinary care can be justified, like that it's not a big deal. And I love my veterinary friends. I'm not saying it. I'm talking about our schools and how we are training our veterinarians. It's the same way we're training our doctors. Nobody is healing anything. There is no money in getting better. And so, like this year, I don't know. I'm not good at timelines. I'm just not good at them. And it could have been 3 months ago. It could have been 6 months ago. But I was working with a client. They wanted like a very easy diet that they could give, and they were feeding a pretty poor kibble. So anything was a good improvement. So I looked at this air dried food for them. They wanted, something air dried that wasn't kibble, but wasn't raw, wasn't freeze dried. And I'm like, okay, well, how about an air dried kibble? Or an air dried, it looked like little pieces of meat. We all know it wasn't. But I think it was Sundays pet food. It's not terrible, not good, but whatever. It's a step in the right direction. I try to meet people where they're at. But what was crazy is I had to fill out a form to find out what was in the food. And it was a little questionnaire. And then it said, what age is your dog? And it had, between 1 and 3, 4 and 6. And then it had like 7 and 9 or 7 and 8. And it labeled it geriatric.
Yeah.
Right. So the more that we see that, right, the more that we keep seeing it, the more accepting we are of it. And that is a travesty for dogs everywhere, for animals everywhere. The more, like, my cat died when he was 23, or no, going to be 23, 22, going on 23. I think he could have lived longer, but like, that is not, in my opinion, for a cat, like, oh my God, that's amazing. And all I hear is, oh my God, it's amazing. People's cats are dying at like 12. Yeah. That is not normal for a cat.
No.
Like, at all, not normal. If a coyote gets your cat, yeah, that has nothing to do with longevity. That has to do with your cat being in the wrong place at the wrong time, right?
Nature.
It's nature, right? And no, I lost a cat to a coyote a couple years ago. It sucked.
Our first pet together was a cat that we lost to coyote, and so it was horrible.
Now my cats go out on a harness and a leash. Yeah. So but they spend plenty of time in the yard. They just are not able to run about, and they don't kill songbirds anymore. So I'm pretty happy. And they are too. But it's a travesty, guys. Like it is so sad that we're being conditioned that way, and it's called baseline theory. And if you know anything about baseline theory, it's how the baseline is pushed farther and farther and farther towards this idea that dogs are geriatric at 7 and 8, so that we can have the acceptance of really poor preventative care. 2 days ago, I was talking to somebody, and they mentioned that a lot of the pet health, I don't have pet health insurance. I don't go to the vet, and I am willing to pay the money if there is an emergency. But like, they are requiring flea and tick meds and vaccinations in order to have pet health insurance. And I implore everyone, if you have that type of pet health insurance, get rid of it. Let these people know, you know what? I'm not taking your pet health insurance. I know that they don't all do it, but let's put our money into a pet health insurance. And also, here's my thing. It's a lot cheaper for that insurance company to insure a healthy pet, right? Who never goes to the vet. And the fact that the timeline for them getting sick is going to be way out there, so they can collect their insurance premiums, right? I'm fine for that. I would buy that insurance. I have no problem with that. But now they're requiring things like groomers require, which is unneeded. I had a boarding kennel for years that I talk about in my book. I didn't require vaccinations. They all came vaccinated, right? I never had one case of kennel cough in my kennel. I never had anything come up, nothing. And, rabies is required by law. Totally get that. I have a protocol for that in my book. I get it. It's your choice to follow the law. I can't say anything about it. But all the other vaccines are not required by law. And they're being circumvented by these pet health insurance companies that are required. And literally, I see people look me straight in the face and say, well, I really want that pet health insurance. At what cost? They're requiring flea and tick meds monthly, right? And they're checking it off with the vet. So, and they're requiring the vaccines being monthly, not monthly, but yearly given, right? And that Bordetella twice a year just to have the pet insurance. That's insane.
Yeah, you're right. We feel the same way.
And that's just funneling money into the pharmaceutical companies. And, I'm not a conspiracy theorist person at all. I don't spend my time in that realm of possibility or even giving my energy to stuff like that. I sign my petitions every day and call it done and do what I can. But I think being the change is more powerful, in my opinion. And like, you know, that pet health insurance is not enough. And I want, you know, I'm going to ask my pet health people, insurance people, hey, which ones don't require it? And those are the ones that I'm going to promote. And I'm going to start promoting them like, hey, I'm going to support you. There's more money in a healthy pet if you're selling insurance.
Yeah. Well, let me know if you find any of those, because I have a very strong feeling that list is going to be pretty short of companies.
Yeah, the list probably is like one or two,
Yeah.
but less we give them our money, the better. Like money talks, and it's just like, hey, writing them a letter, hey, I'm going to go to this pet health insurance company because they don't force me to do vaccine. I want to have a healthy pet, and like, you know, sorry, you know, but there are a lot of great holistic vets that are fighting for over vaccination and things like that. And the reason why I wrote my book is plain and simple organ health, you know.
We need it.
Organ health.
The pets, the dogs, they need it really bad. They need help getting past these genetic problems that are starting to happen more and more regularly. So we love what you're doing. My wife, she grew up in a really awesome way, going to a thing called Siddha Yoga, and so like Ayurveda was really kind of one of those things that they talked a lot about. So did you want to ask her something about? I think you wanted to ask something that kind of like was about her approach.
Well, if you studied before diving into herbalism, how did that shape, I guess, the way you approach dog health today? Like, because I grew up kind of understanding it for our health, and then correlating it with like my own health issues, even as time goes on, fixing with purees and herbs and whatnot, trying to, and then we wanted to do it for the animals. But how did that resonate with you to go from, you know, your learnings to animals?
So, you know, like, in my book, I talk about that I studied Ayurveda, in the beginning. You know, I went to the University of Minnesota. I didn't study it there. I studied Eastern religion, Buddhism, and I looked at Ayurveda as a system of medicine. And while it's an awesome system of medicine, and a lot of my mentors really practice the Vata Pitta Kapha kind of experience for humans, it's a little harder to put on dogs. And you know, so much is lost in translation. You know, when you speak the Hindi language, you really, like, my friend was Hindi. She was a Janist, and she spoke Hindi, and she was lovely. And she explained to me that, you know, so much is lost in the translation of the text into English because a lot of the concepts are not in the English language. And that's the same for me as TCM. You know, a lot, when you speak Mandarin Chinese, a lot of the concepts, you know, you take away someone's culture by taking away their language, right? And so, like, it didn't resonate with me. It wasn't fully resonating with me. As a person, it was fine. In fact, you'll enjoy this. So this was my favorite little, like, introductory. I would give people this book to help them figure out, because, you know, it's not only an introductory to Ayurveda, it's like a workbook, right? I still have it. It's right here. I had it when I was like 23, 22. I really like it. I love my books. I keep them a long time, but like, I think that a lot of plant language and plant communication is found in the plants that are around our genetic heritage and our makeup. Just that frequency. Like, for instance, you know, like, I am surrounded by plants right now, and I could walk out I just got a gimbal. I'm going to do plant walks. So I just got a gimbal, and I could literally walk out here and identify 20 plants that I could take into my body within like 5 minutes. Okay. And those are the plants that I grew up with, whether they be in Michigan, whether they're here. You know, some of them are in the desert, not a lot, you know, in Arizona, but there's a lot of our Western herbalism found in the desert, right? And I really feel like the frequency of those plants resonate with us more in the places we are born. And that, I don't get into in the book with that, right? But I really went back to my roots, and that's where I really found I found home. I found a common place. I found memories. I found connection and blood connection with the plants. And so it was fun. And I started, I think I made my first salve for dogs in 2024, I think, that or 2025. And it's still on the market today, which is super fun. I don't own that company anymore, but it's fun I buy my own salves now, which is insane. I mean, I can make them, but I don't feel like it. So I buy them and I put them on my shelf, and which is fun. Like, oh, I'm buying my own salves. That's good. I rescued a lot of dogs with a brilliant dog trainer named Peg Harrington. And we did this pug rescue, and we tried to do it right. We did a holistic pug rescue as much as we could. We used a lot of herbs and good diets and things like that. I mean, the diets that were available then, which is completely different than the diets that are available now. We're so gifted with all of these lovely companies that we can choose from now. But I had this boarding kennel, and I really just realized just how sick dogs were. Yeah. And the dog owners were at a loss. They were at a loss. They were like, I don't know what to do. They'd hand me a bag of kibble and a bag of pharmaceuticals. And it was just like, oh my God, there's got to be something better. And that's when I started working with my clients, and I had all of the pugs that we were working with. And someone asked me one day what I was, and I was like, how do I explain this? Because I decided, I'm going to dedicate my life to dogs, especially after I read Julia de Barclay-Levy's book and Cheryl Schwartz's book. And then I picked up Barbara Fergois' veterinary herbalism book. And I was like, people are doing this. You couldn't find it on the internet, but like, people are doing this. Like, they're out there. I don't know where they are. Greg Tilford's book. And I was like, I'm a canine herbalist. And, I made it up. I was like, I don't know how to, because I wasn't helping. I don't forget I'm on kitty friends now, but I didn't, I was like, okay, I'm just going to focus on one thing. My dad taught me, like, focus on one thing and get really good at it, right? You'll have less chaos, just focus on one thing. So I'm like, you know what? I finally found something that I'm ready to focus on. And I said, I'm a canine herbalist, and I just stepped into it, right? I stepped into it, and now I'm teaching other people to be canine herbalists. I'm not the only herbalist in town. There's lots of really great animal herbalists out there that work with, chickens and dogs and cats and horses and everything. I'm starting to dabble a little in horses because I have one, and I've not always had a horse, but I grew up with horses, and now I have this lovely horse named Moose. But it's
a horse named Moose.
Yeah, horse named Moose. He looked like a moose when he was a baby, and it's just fun, right? There's so many facets of it, and dogs need natural healing, whether it be, I love homeopathy, I love herbs, I love a lot of healing modalities like frequency and energy healing, and I love all that stuff, but I really do focus on the frequency and energy of plants.
That's beautiful. And I mean, we can literally feel how much you love what you do, like through the airwaves, if you will. I guess I'm an 80s kid talking to airwaves. But yeah. I'm a 70s kid, but I remember my high school years in the 80s. Yeah. Well, we love what you do, and you were talking about the kennel that you opened up. One, not too much about myself, but I'm also from Michigan, and I also lived in Tennessee for a little while. You had your kennel was in Tennessee, if I'm correct, right?
Yes, an hour outside of Nashville.
Yeah, okay. I lived in Murfreesboro for a little bit there.
Well, yeah. There it is. Yeah. I've been there many times.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place. The weather was a lot more extreme than I thought it was going to be. It was very hot in the summer and very rainy and cold in the winter.
Humid.
Yes, very humid.
Oh my God! I remember the summer. I'm more of a damp person, and I remember the summer where I'm like, okay, it's 7 a.m. and I am sweating.
Yeah.
This is crazy. And Michigan was. I lived in Upper Michigan, so it was a little bit better, and it was right on Lake Michigan, so you had that weather pattern for being on Lake Michigan, so it wasn't so hot and balmy.
Yeah.
Ooh, I was like, I'm done.
Yeah, I get it.
here, and yeah, I need more sun for sure, but I sure do love the weather, and it is not humid ever.
Yeah, that's true. So with the almost home pet, was it pet farm that you called it
Yeah,
in
almost home
Tennessee?
pet farm. Yeah.
So that was I loved reading about that and your experience there. And so like, what would you say was the biggest lesson that you learned from running that?
Oh God, I mean, so many. I just want you to know that there is a video on YouTube.
Okay.
Look, I think if you Google Almost Home Pet Farm, there's a video of me walking in the woods with all of the dogs. And I think it's got like Lord of the Rings music. Anyway, there still is a video. It's me holding a camera and all of these little dogs, and my little heart dog's in there. Just check it out someday. It's actually very sweet. You'll see a little black pug, and she's walking in front of me, and it's the only video I have of her. Just, that's Frances, who I dedicated my book to. But the lessons that I have learned, the biggest lesson that I learned early on, is how much we affect the anxiety of our dogs. You know, people would come out for an interview, and I would be like, okay, you have to stay inside my house while I meet your dog. And they would be so upset. And I'm like, listen, I need to know what your dog's like without you. I need to know how desperate they are to see you. And I need to know if your dog can hang with this group of dogs. And it's going to take about a half hour for them to calm down and let's just see. And early on, I realized, you know, our stress is their stress, and how much we affect our dogs and how much diet affects our dogs. You know, I don't know if I mentioned it in the book, but I instilled like a list of, I don't know how many foods. It could be 15, it could be 20. I can't remember. Might have been 30. I'm not sure. But I wish I would have kept that little piece of paper, because it would have been fun. You never know what you're going to do in the future, you know?
Yeah.
You should keep a couple things, but I don't like clutter. So, you know, I'm just like, I didn't keep it. I wish I would have. But I would hand them this little piece of paper. It was about diet. And it was made by this great, my old business partner, Lynn Higgins. She made this thing. She had a natural dog store in Nashville. And so I would give him that about diet. And then I would give him this list of foods. And I'd be like, listen, you have to keep your dog on one of these foods, you know, and you have to do it all year. I'll know if you take them off, because they'll turn into absolute crazy, restless, anxious dogs. And, you know, so I realized that, you know, carbs and sugar really affect dogs. And the list, you know, was it was high-end kibble. And of course I accepted raw, and there was no freeze-dried on the market at that time that I can remember. There was a little bit of raw, a lot of homemade raw feeding, you know, a lot of prey model feeding. And I had some Vizslas and some poodles that used to bring me coolers. Those were fun. But I just couldn't board dogs that ate things like pedigree and science diet and different, like, really crap ingredients, you know, wheat and soy, corn, all that stuff, because it just wreaks havoc on their nervous system and their pancreas, and they're just a mess. And people would switch them onto a different food because they wanted to board their dogs with me. They would switch them onto a different food, and I would always hear back from them going, oh my God, you know, even on kibble, my dog is a different dog.
Yep.
They couldn't believe the difference. Kibble and digestive enzymes. They couldn't believe the difference there. And the dogs look different. They act different. They were less aggressive. You know, the body would help them. And then, you know, I would recommend herbs that help the dog's body deal with eating the kibble.
Detox.
Right?
Transition.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have had any customers if I said, yeah, you have to feed raw. I wouldn't have any customers. So people weren't ready for that, especially way back then. But you know what's crazy is that in 2003, 2004, when I started boarding my first dog, I don't think I ever heard of any dog having cancer. Not one.
No. Yeah.
I did not ever hear of it. It was so uncommon. And then I met a little wiener dog that had some form of cancer, and I was like, cancer in dogs? That's crazy. Now 1 in 2 dogs will die of cancer. That was like, you know, a little over 20 years ago. So, you know, what has changed since then? You know, dogs weren't completely over vaccinated then. Our agriculture system wasn't as screwed up. glyphosate just started coming on the market, and unfortunately, we started having Wi-Fi in our homes.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't want to talk about that because we're on Wi-Fi right now. We started having Wi-Fi in our homes, and we started, I think 20 years ago, we started coming into our homes so much. Like we just started coming into our homes and not being outside hardly at all. And it really has taken its toll. So I kind of think about what are the things that have changed in the last 20 years? A lot of pharmaceutical medicine, veterinary medicine has gotten worse, not better. Emergency medicine, it's absolutely fabulous at. Think about how many vets save lives every single day, but it's not good at preventative medicine unless they're holistic. It's really not. And it's not good at longevity. And again, people are thinking longevity is 12, 13 years old. It's not. We need to shoot for 20s. We need to be in the 20s. We need to get back there, and we need to thrive, not just exist.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you're talking about Wi-Fi. I actually carry this little Wi-Fi blocker in my pocket. So we try to think of everything, and these beautiful creatures of ours are a lot more sensitive to these types of things than we are, even. With their magnetic, in their microbiome, they have they're connected to the earth, and so we need to just think about all that stuff. So I'm glad you even brought that up, and it's just amazing that the things that you're talking about resonate with us so much. And I know one thing that you talked about in the book is dogs being, all of them, they're all individuals. They're all their own little thing, and their own ecosystem. And so could you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, and one thing, about the Wi-Fi is that I think 20 years from now, our organisms will adapt to it. But it's those in-between times that we have the hardest part, we're energetic organisms. And the problem is that, food in general, kibble and the reason why you need digestive enzymes for kibble is because it's completely dead of any resonance. It has no resonance. Fresh food, fresh herbs, when something is fresh, like an apple versus a cooked apple. Yeah, there's vitamins and minerals in that cooked apple, but it's dead of resonance. It doesn't have frequency. It doesn't have voltage, right? And our cells need enough voltage to live. And so we're giving so much convenience. Processed food has hardly any voltage, and electromagnetic frequencies bring voltage down. That's why we need to get outside as much as we can, because when we're outside, our voltage goes up. And so we'll go back to dogs and individuals. So yeah, dogs are individuals. Recently was at an event in Hood River, Oregon. Just if you ever get a chance to go there, God, it's so beautiful. And they had this big wall of dogs. It's on one of my social media pages. Big wall of dogs, like hundreds of dogs on it that are their clients and stuff. And you saw all the different faces, and there were some kitties in there too, all the different faces and all the individual personalities. And, all of us are individuals in as humans, and we're all different, and we're all on a spectrum. We're all on this spectrum of, some of us are warmer than the others, some are cooler than the others, some of them are damper, some are drier. A lot of, and then we have, it can be ever so slightly different, just a little bit, but it has such an impact in the way that it manifests in the body. So dogs are individuals, and not what one works for one will not work for the other. A lot of people feed 5 dogs in the house the same thing. That's not going to work. And so, when we look at the ecosystem, the ecosystem of a dog is the same as the ecosystem of our ecosystem, is that when you start looking at your body as nature, right? You'll start to know that anything you put on or in your ecosystem either has to fight against it, or it thanks you. It says, you know what, I need that. Or, you know what, I don't need that. Now I'm going to have to work for the next 6 hours to get it out. And in my book, I equate that to spider webs. I talk about, a spider web, and those little spiders in Tennessee, not big spiders, is such a good analogy I've been told that it's not, I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying that I've been told by one of my mentors, he's like, that was a great analogy, Rita, because I used it in class once. I'm like, it's like a spider web. He's like, that's a great analogy. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to use it in my book. But when spiders, when stuff goes in the web, spiders go through it, they work so hard at just getting it out of there. They'll destroy that part of the web and they'll hit it and they'll push it out, get it out of my ecosystem. And then they repair it and then they go back to the middle and go about their day, right? And for a spider, it's all about trapping food to exist, right? But they only want certain food. Spiders aren't dumb, they don't eat processed food. They only want certain food. And without that certain food, they're not eating and they already know it, right? They don't want anything in their ecosystem that harms the ecosystem. And that is what humans don't understand. That's why I work with a lot more dogs than I do humans, because humans will sabotage themselves and get in their way. I'm completely guilty of that. Completely guilty. This morning I had a matcha latte, right? Oat milk matcha latte, organic oat milk, but still. I had it. I like to have it once a week. It's my treat. And I won't be here this weekend because I'm at an event. So I went and got one. I get the little short one, just the small guy. But it's true. I don't know if it's good for my body or not. I don't have it much. I'd have to eat it every day and find out. But when humans will eat processed food, they'll eat fast food. They don't want to cook. And I see the humanization of dogs every day. Like when I went to Super Zoo last year, I was floored at the sugar that is finding its way into our dogs' lives, because we want our dogs' lives to mimic ours, right? Like there's birthday cake flavored treats. There was this one thing for a birthday. Like, I get it. It's once a year. You go to the pup cup, blah, blah, blah. I understand. And I ain't going to say, I'm not going to be a Debbie Downer with the once a year. I'm not. However, it is seeping its way in, even in some of what would be known as holistic foods and treats, like honey. Okay, there's a thing about honey. Raw honey is fine. Have a little teaspoon for your dog, fine. Their body's going to process that. But in order to have honey, it be in liquid form, something that you can put in a recipe, okay, and get it to be like water, right? You have to heat that honey. And once it's heated past 110 degrees, don't quote me on the degrees, but it's around 110, it turns into a refinement of honey. Okay, it's no longer raw. Now it's just pure sugar. And I gave up honey. I stopped eating honey. I'll have raw honey, or manuka or something like that. But I stopped having honey in my tea because it was negatively affecting my health. Because of course I put it in when it's super hot, and then because I want it to be like part of that solution, right? And I was like, I really have to get rid of that. Only on special occasion. When I'm in Ireland, I turn Irish. So I have my morning tea with my honey. But yeah. How often do I get to Ireland, right? Not very often. But yeah, I couldn't believe the amount of sugar, molasses, blackstrap molasses, cane sugar, coconut sugar. There's a whole bunch of them. Jerkies are getting very popular for dogs, and if they're made by normal jerky, they're crap. Our dogs don't need sugar. Our dog bodies don't need sugar. They don't need sugar. They don't need sugar, and they don't need sugar. Even dogs that eat a heavy rice-based diet or lots of sweet potatoes, if it's a restorative diet, if it's a restorative diet is a diet that's not going to be fed for a long time. Brown rice is very good for the kidney. In the winter or certain kidney diseases, food therapy is very effective. But those diets are restorative. They're not meant to be fed nonstop, right? And when we feed a high carb diet to a dog nonstop. Dogs are individuals. There's some dogs that can handle that, but it's not the norm, right?
Yeah,
It's not the norm.
that makes a lot of sense.
I love seasonal feeding for that reason.
And
So
I love learning that from you because I mean I definitely learned some things like turmeric being like a warming thing. So you were talking a little bit about the energetics, that I believe is what you call it, or what it's called, where
yeah,
you're talking about hot, cold, damp, dry. Those are amazing things that I don't think a lot of folks out there understand at all. And you talk about how herbals and things that we can find in nature can help with calming those things, or whatever we want to call it, you know, or healing them, or helping them, a hot dog cool down, or a cool dog warm up, or whatever
yeah,
they need. And so I would love for you to kind of go a little bit more into that for people out there who don't even understand, or if they even know how to tell if their dog is hot or cold, you know, stuff like that.
yeah. So in the book, chapter 3 is the most important chapter. The most important page in the book is page 137. Those are my opinions, and obviously that'll be different for everyone. But chapter 3 is very important. It's on energetics, and you know, your dog is an individual, and one of the ways they're an individual is the spectrum that they are on for warm and cool and damp and dry and tense and relax. I'm not going to talk about warm, dry. I'm not going to talk about damp, cool, and tense and relax. You can learn that in the book. But if you only get one thing, if your dog is cool or warm, you'll still have such a better outcome than if you don't. And, you know, if you give a dog, dogs are born either warm or cool, in my opinion. Okay. So in the last 20 years, that's one thing that has shown up over and over and over again. You know, you can have things that are neutral. There may be a few neutral dogs out there. Have not met very many of them. They tend to be neutral, leaning warm or leaning cool. They're very healthy dogs, though, right? That would be an extremely healthy dog. And we don't have a lot of those anymore, which is sad. And hopefully, through conversations and through the plants and through the work, we can have healthier dogs. You know, my goal in the next 10 to 20 years is to train vets on how to use herbal medicine and people. That's my goal, and that's what I'm going to do. And so, like, but warm and cool, you know, it's just, how does your dog deal with heat and cold? Like, what do they do? Do they snuggle up by the fire in the winter time and you have to take them off of, like, away from it? You know, they like to bake themselves, which I think is so cute. I think when dogs are baking, they're sitting there panting, but they're loving every minute of it. You know, that's a cool dog, or it might be a cold dog. Warm dogs don't do that.
Yeah.
They might sit by the fire for 10 to 15 minutes, and then they're done, and they're going to go move away from the fire, right? And a warm dog can get cold if it's winter. You know, I'm a warm person. I get cold. I have to put a sweater on. It doesn't stay on very long. Heater. That's the biggest thing. Like, I'll go out to my car, and my partner is a cool person, and I'll go out. They'll have the seat heater on all three, right? All the highest, right? And I will have that seat heater on one for about 15 minutes, and then I got to turn it off. I'm like, oh my God, this is, you know, warm. This is too warm. Or I'll put the heat on blast for like 15 minutes. And thank God we have one of those cars that has the heat on. You can have different heats on both sides, because yeah, I just want it. I like it on my feet, and that's it.
Yeah.
Oh, in the summer, I want the air blowing on my face, and that's it, right? So, like, it's, you know, it is how you deal with heat. I can tell a person if they're warm or cool, like, right away, if they're in a natural environment, right? But a dog is a little more difficult. Like, a cool dog, again, gravitates towards heat. They might like to be covered up. They actually might enjoy clothes. You know, they might be more cuddly and, like, seek that warmth from you. And then a warm dog likes the tile floor, likes the wood floor, likes to sit out in the snow. You just have to kind of look at where they are on that spectrum. And some dogs are a little more elusive. But you can figure it out. It's really interesting. And cats are a little more difficult to figure out. You really have to see the minutia of things with cats, because cats as a species, tend to like warmth, right? But like my cat Carl, or as we call him, Caw, the L silent L. And then Oski, who is a fluffy, what is he? A ragdoll. He's a ragdoll cat. He's just so lovely. Just such a little mucka. I love him. But okay, Oski is less conducive to heat than Carl. Carl can sit on a heating pad for hours. He loves it. Oski will sit on there for a little bit and then he's gone. Carl gravitates toward the heat. Like we have this little heating pad that we have on the right side of our bed up in the corner, and we just leave it on low, right? We always find Carl in there in the morning. Oski might be laying next to your face on the pillow, but he's not going to be on the heat. In the dead of winter, sometimes him and Carl are rolled up on that. But we sleep with our window open kind of almost all year long, even if you can see your breath like out of the covers. I like to sleep cold. I'm sure I torture my partner, but like
guilty.
You should see, like, I just like fresh air. I like fresh air when I'm sleeping. And so it's interesting, what they do. So cats, you kind of have to see, like really observe. But if you figure those two things out, you can use a palette. You'll be privy to a palette of herbs that are, if you have a warm dog, that are cooling. And these are energetics is consistency. It's not the one-off. It's not the pup cup. It's not the treat at the bank. It's not the granny brought over a special bags of treats, that you're going to give for like 4 days or whatever. It's not that. It really matters when you are giving something consistently, or you're giving a formula consistently. You want that formula to be balanced for your dogs of the opposite energetic. So a warm dog needs a cooling formula, and a cool dog needs a warming formula consistently. Any herb can be used acutely for a couple of weeks. Now, the biggest thing with energetics is the sicker your dog is, the more chronic disease they have, the more sensitive they are going to be to those herbs, right? So a healthy warm dog can deal with some turmeric or ginger, right? And especially if they have more energetic flexibility, where you're putting a little ginger in for the kind of health qualities of ginger or turmeric, like once or twice a week, we're not going to see a big fluctuation there. When the base, like for instance, let's just put a recipe together. So you went out in the yard, you picked some plantain, a little nettle, you got some chickweed going, you add a little ginger, okay, a little sprinkle of turmeric, and some bone broth, and you cook that up, lightly cook it up, and your dog eats it. Or you puree it, and you put it in your dog's food. The majority of that, and let's just say we're feeding rabbit and beef. Okay, so the foundational and general consensus or net energetic of that is cooling. We got a little warming substances, which is good for circulation and stuff. A healthy dog could eat that, have no problems. But a really sick dog with like cancer may not even be able to deal with the heat of the ginger and the turmeric if they are a warm dog, which they're going to be hot. They're going to be very hot if they have cancer, because hot and cold are disease states. So, they're going to be a lot less likely to tolerate individual ingredients. Is that the case for a lot of dogs? No. A lot of dogs, before they get sick, can have, they have more energetic flexibility. But like a cold dog, like a cold dog has a harder time, because cool dogs, their vital force, that force that animates us, the force that's making me talk right now. If I spiked a dizzy and fell over dead right now, I would just be a slump. I would just be this container for Rita Hogan. Rita Hogan had left the building. That's your vital force, right? That's your vital force. And I'm a warm person. So warm dogs, their vital force, they tend to burn themselves out, right? Well, cool dogs, what happens is the vital force just starts to diminish and diminish and diminish and get so light and so lethargic. It's harder to heal a dog who's cool that turns cold. We got to heat them up. They've got to get heat. They need heat in their core. Calendula, ginger, turmeric, angelica. These things that tend to add heat to the body and warm it up. Basil, however you want to call it. Our neutral herbs are also fine, like licorice and slippery elm. Those are neutral, but if you add them to a nice heating, warming herb, they're not going to add a lot of energetic there. It's going to be like ginger is going to be the dominant, angelica and things like that. So if you feed a cool dog those warming herbs, it's going to warm the core and the vital force is going to start coming back. Right. And that's the goal, is to get them out of that, because when they're on the spectrum, they're cool heading towards cold, or they're cold heading towards deep cold, which they're going to have some type of disease, some type of arthritis, autoimmune disease, cancer, something. Like Addison's have, cool dogs mostly get Addison's and warm dogs get Cushing's. Warm people get high cortisol levels, where cool people get bacterial infections and candida and yeast. And that also, yeast is damp as well. So you can have hot and damp and cool and damp. So hot people can get yeast infections too. But cool dogs, because of that vital force, and it really affects the microbiome, they tend to get more pathogenic overgrowth in general, right? Whether you're cool and damp or cool and dry, it just depends. Wow. So yeah, if you just get cool and warm for your dog, you can end, for the most part, that supplement graveyard. You can look at a formula and go and say, for instance, you have a nice cool dog, they're pretty healthy, everything's going fine. You can make a huge difference in their longevity outcomes and keeping them at a nice cool level versus heading into cold. Because when they get sick, or when you do antibiotics, or when you do the vaccines, or when you give the steroids, their body is going to go towards cold, right? You want to keep them there. It's kind of like whack-a-mole. You just kind of, you're going back and forth, like stay here. And this is what we got to do with ourselves too. Yeah. Stay here. And when that happens, you're going to be able to look at a formula and go, okay, and I have all the energetics in my book for almost anything you can think of. Someone always gives me a doozy, like says, what's the energetic of Wolverine or something crazy. Like, I don't know. I'm pretty sure I don't know. I'm sorry, I do not know. But you'll be able to look at formulas and go, okay, this formula is energetically cooling for the most part, or it's balanced. It has an equal amount of heat and cooling. Okay, so your dog might be able to try that. And one of the things that the book answers is that, I looked at what people wanted out of an herbal. And like I was driving to this bookstore that I'm going to do an event for next week and today, and I was thinking about, we're not gatekeepers. You don't want to be an herbalist or a person, an expert that's a gatekeeper, right? You can't get to this information without me. Like, yeah, we all need to make a living. I get that. But I think a balance is good with that. But we are the light bringers. We are the torch holders, where we light the way for people behind us. And this is not my information. This is what I've been taught. This is my mentor's information. And then, everyone, you put information through your brain, it comes out the other side better. That's what we all hope for. Yeah. I hope someone takes my book, reads it, has some awesome aha moments, and makes it better. That's all that a mentor wants, right? My mentors have always been very selfless, non-egotistical people, because that's why I gravitate towards those types of people. Because, you know, when I'm working with my mentors, I'm just like looking at them like, oh my God, you're amazing. You are amazing. And we all have those moments, right? But they are relaying the information traditionally through herbalism is handed down and handed down. And we really don't want that to die out. And one of the things that I put in this book is the house. Like, you know, yeah, I get that I have a cool dog. I get that turmeric and ginger is good for them, but I don't know how to use it. And I don't know what form to use it in. I don't know how long to use it. I don't know how to tell if it's actually working. I don't know when to stop it or what that looks like. And I will tell you the number one kind of like gateway that's keeping you from learning herbs is patience.
Yeah.
Like, because they're not pharmaceuticals. Yes, they can work. The more well indicated an herb is, the better it's going to work for your dog. And I talk about what that means in the book, but like, those answers are there. And like, how many, like, if I use a tincture, how many drops do I start off with? If I use a glycerate, what do I do? If I use how do I make a tea? Or with turmeric, it would be more of a decoction. Like how, what is that? And how do I, is it difficult? Where can I buy it? And that's on my website for the Herbal Dog. They wouldn't let me put that in my book. And, but well, cause you know, websites go out of business and all that stuff. So just, now that we have the internet, they just set up a book website and you put stuff on there. But like I think those things are really important to know. So, but when you learn energetics, you can look at herbs differently. You know, like when you go in the back of the book on the Mercuria Medica, let's just go with yarrow. I just opened up to yarrow. Well, no, now we're on Solomon seal. So Solomon seal, a lot of people haven't heard about that herb. It's fantastic. And you know, like the part of the herb is really important because like Solomon seal, it's poisonous. All of it except for the root. And thank you for those people, our ancestors that found the hard way, right?
Right.
Or, you know, all the vomiting and all of that stuff that you did, finding out that Solomon seal would make you sick. You know, toxicity doesn't mean death all the time. It can mean vomiting, diarrhea, you know, malaise, being sick for a few days while the body works to kick it out, you know. But Solomon seal is poisonous, but the root is not. And so, you know, I go through like what parts use. Is it good for long term? But one of the things that will be the second in the list under Solomon seal is the energetics. It's cool and damp. Okay, so that is it, you know, it's not super damp, but it's cool and damp. And you know that if you're going to be giving Solomon seal, you want your dog to be a warm dog or a hot dog, right? You can, like, it works really well for like a CCL tear. Now that's acute use. So you could put it in a warmed up formula and probably use it just fine to heal that CCL tear. But once that tear was healed, you would not be giving Solomon seal long term. You know, so it's kind of like, oh, well, what you'll get to the point where you have like a group of herbs that work well for your dog. And I love seasonal healing. So like I use certain herbs for my dogs in the spring, in the summer, in the fall, in the winter. And I just rotate, come from a preventative mindset. And that works great. I don't talk about that in the book too much. That's another book. But when you get that kind of palette of herbs, your herbs are going to be mostly cooling if you have a warm dog. And they're going to be mostly warming if you have a cool dog, right? And so you don't have to mess with the other herbs. They're not necessarily for your dog, but only in small amounts if your dog is healthy. But if your dog has chronic disease and they're sick, you're not going to pick those. But you can look at a formula and go, hey, this one is mostly warming. So I'm going to try this one for my cool dog.
That's a great way to use your book too, because I mean, that's like if somebody is looking at a product, they can look at the ingredients on there and go to your book and start being like, oh, this has this in it, that's warm, this is cool. And they can kind of sit there and add it up, and then it can be like, oh, it's a hot product, cool product, neutral. And then, you know, like you said, we were talking about every dog as an individual. most people, they all know. We always say like, you know your pet best. You know, like if you know your pet well, you're gonna know if they're hot or cool, especially once you start hearing those dynamics as far as the
Yes.
energetics.
Yes, and that's exactly it. Like a page 392 to page 398, it is just lists of energetics. And I have a list of herbs that are not in this book as well. Like page 396 to 398 is herbs not found in this book. And there's tons of them.
Yeah.
Like I could not include all the herbs in this book, but there's tons of herbs in this book, in the back of the book, that tells you, like I didn't cover comfrey in the book. It's cool and damp. Borage is cool and damp. Bugleweed is cool and dry. Motherwort, great herb, cool and dry. Moringa, like a lot of people know what that is. It's warm and damp. Moringa, it's a superfood. You should give it to every dog. No, you shouldn't. But like it's warming and it's damp. So if you had a hot dog that was damp, okay, that had a bunch of lipomas, and you were trying to, like a bunch, and you were trying to give that dog some nutrition, liver support, which moringa is very good at, but it's not good for hot dogs for that. It's good for a cool dog for that. A cool damp dog, or I mean a cool, cool dry dog, sorry. If you were going to use that consistently, like, it's not going to work.
It might make
If
it
it's
worse.
moringa is in, like, say the moringa is, I need to look at something. If say the moringa was in a treat that you gave once a week, or in like one of those like large supplements, there's supplements that have like 72 ingredients in it, and you gave that maybe twice a week, not going to be that much big of a deal. It's if you give it every single day, right? If you give it every single day, then you're going to have a problem. And if you like, another thing, like how energetics is really great. So like pork is cool. Some pork is cold, depending on how it's raised. It's cool and it's really damp. Oh, because of the fat content in pork, right? And I met with a woman that was in one of my events, and she said, I started giving my dog pork. I was talking about energetics that night. And she goes, I just realized I started giving my dog pork about 3 months ago, and his lipomas have like tripled. And I didn't really realize that it was the pork. And she's giving it to a dog who's already cool and damp. Okay? That food is cool and damp. And so, yeah, those lipomas are going to get bigger.
That's a huge thing for people to understand. I don't think that a lot of people out there even understand that the different proteins are a big deal when it comes to the cool and hot and how it affects your dogs. And every one of them is different. Like we have 3 dogs, and all of them are a little bit different in the way that they are, as far as the way they run heat wise and throughout the everyday.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it helps. And is it 100%? No, nothing is. However, because dogs are individuals, but it's definitely a guide.
Yeah, we love
it's a guide, and that's I'm not fail proof. Like I said, most of the information is what I've been taught, and I'm regurgitating it and organizing. I'm an information organizer. I'm an information organizer. Yes, my own salt and pepper are on all of the information for sure. But the information has always been there. It's just, a matter of interpretation and regurgitation. Yeah. And I feel privileged to be a light bringer. I feel privileged to be one of those people that is passing the baton on to other folk to make it better in the future, because we all have to be involved. To make change. We've got to be involved. And however, whatever your comfort zone is, to be involved. Right. Some people's comfort zone isn't what, like I'm doing or you're doing, making a podcast, putting your face on video. Some people aren't, that's not their way to do it. You just have to find your way and make it yours and help change the world. I think that's what a lot of people should be doing in one way or another, however it resonates with them.
I agree.
Totally agree with you.
Collaboration right here is a good start.
Yeah, collaboration is good.
Yeah, I love your goal there too. The ultimate goal of getting this out to the veterinarians, because unfortunately, the pet food industry is, I compare it to like the used car industry, where it's just like there's a lot of lies out there, a lot of things, misinformation. So it's a lot of mistrust, right? So people don't trust anything that they're being told anymore, and so the vets themselves, people are looking to them to be the light, and unfortunately, let's just say that not all of them are. And so like by getting it out there to those type of individuals, that's how it's going to get out to the people and start to really build on what you're saying, which is passing on the baton, because once it's out there, then everybody can start learning from each other and making it just grow.
Yeah, and I think I think it's important to integrate Eastern and Western medicine, herbs, and what we got going on too, because there's a time and place for it all. But is it every day? No, I do believe nature is every day though for all of us. So to integrate what you do into what they're, I think it's brilliant and it's super helpful for the common folk that are so reliable on their own doctors and their own verbiage that they might hear, and they trust that. So when they see, oh, you're combining herbs too, then they're going to have more trust as a whole, it seems like.
Well, and I do think that all vets, almost all vets, I don't think any of them are trying to harm our animals.
No.
I think that, a vet has, one, a ton of debt. Number two, a ton of stress. They're seeing dogs at their worst. To go to the vet if they're at their worst. They're doing what they believe is right? But I think that we need to pass that baton on to us as owners and advocates for our pet, to be honest with our veterinarians, so that instead of just walking away from somebody and trying to find a new vet, whether, if you are okay and comfortable having a conversation with your vet face to face, or maybe you need to send an email, but you need to let them know that, hey, so I'm going to be getting a new vet, and here's why. Like, I don't feel heard. I don't feel that you have the knowledge to help my pet be healthy, right? I do get that you have the knowledge to tell me what pharmaceutical I should use, and I appreciate that, but it's not doing anything to heal the problem. Or if your vet hasn't even asked you what your dog's diet is, and to just explain to them, hey, here's some books that might help, like The Forever Dog by Rodney Bibb and Karen Becker, like that book alone, or Feeding Dogs by Dr. Connor Brady. If you're interested, right, to know more about diet, here's some resources. They can take it or leave it. But here's the thing, guys. If they hear this multiple times over and over, and it is affecting their business, their career, their mission, they will eventually take heed. And if they don't, I think that a lot of veterinarians will not make it into the future. We have to adapt. And I think that we are really noticing that nature is missing. And they don't know how to use herbs. A lot of vets are learning about acupuncture, which is great. They're learning about chiropractic care, which is great. They're learning about like TCM formula, like T-pills, better than nothing, right? But a lot of them don't know. And unless we share our needs with them and tell them that I appreciate your care up to now, but it's just not working out, and here's why. You don't need to blame them. Just tell them what your truth is, what you're feeling. And I think that the more that, because a lot of times we don't tell them anything, we just go get another vet. Exactly. I don't think that's helping.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think that the symptoms that everybody wants their symptoms to go away on their pets, and it goes back to that thing you were talking about, people humanizing our pets because we feel their pain even though we magnify it. And so when you were talking about patience, that is the thing that I think that a lot of veterinarians or doctors, they don't teach or even have. And so when you go to the vet and you have a problem with your pet and they're just like, well, just go home and wait 6 weeks. Well, I just paid you $300, so they have to justify their salary in a way. And so that's another thing that's a big problem. And that's why I think that with what you're talking about with teaching this to them as what I think should be part of curriculum, as well as nutrition, that a lot of them are not trained on or they're not confident with nutrition. Those are the foundations, and I think that herbs can be mixed in with that foundation of nutrition in so many ways, and that can help a lot of this.
Yeah, and you brought up a really good point is, remember that most of our veterinarians see dogs at their worst. Yeah. And they see all of the worst case scenarios. And we live in such a litigious society. Okay, people sue people so quickly for just making a common error, right? A human error, that they're going to tell you the worst case scenario of anything because of the fact that if they don't, you might sue them.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
If they don't send you home with something, you might sue them. So, I think that it's a responsibility on both ends, on both sides. Like, if we want better vet care, we need to be more honest with our vets, whether they tell us to go shove it up, or not, right? Like, send an email. Don't be condescending. Don't be you. Just be like, this is my truth. This is how I feel. I just wanted to let you know. Here's some links. All the best to you, And they might, like I said, they might not like the first one, the second one, the third one. But when they start getting multiple emails, like, hey, we all can do better. We can do better.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And we've got to do better. So it starts with us.
Yeah, it's
in
about
my opinion.
planting the seed. We always talk about planting the seed
Yeah,
and watching it grow, like
it is.
a tree growing out of a rock. It can happen.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, but I'm definitely not anti-vet in any way. I just think that our veterinary schools
yes.
Aren't teaching nutrition to these people. They're not teaching any type of herbalism to these people. You have to go out and seek it. Like, if you want to be a holistic vet, you have to go out and seek that, and which is a travesty. And it's the same in allopathic human medicine. Is the doctors don't do house calls anymore. They're not interested in healing people. There's no money in it.
No, and then you were talking about a lot of them already being in crazy debt, and so to pay more money to go to learn a whole new practice, which is holistic veterinary.
So it starts with the schools.
Yeah.
It starts with the schools.
Yeah, and it's like, just by questioning things these days, all of a sudden you're anti. And so we're not anti-vet by any means at all. We just question whether or not the system is kind of gamed in a lot of ways towards just a lot of pets are getting sick, and that's something that we need to understand that better.
Yeah, 1 in 2 dogs will die of cancer, and you just have to ask your vet, what can you recommend to improve the health of my dog's organs?
Yeah.
And just see what happens after that.
Yeah, I love it. You talk a little bit about toxic load as well, and like herbs that can kind of help with that, and that's another thing that I don't think people understand. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, toxic load has a lot to do with the lymphatic system, and a lot of people don't know what it is. They've heard of it according to like cancer, but they don't know what it does. So my book definitely helps them understand what the lymphatic system is and how that is important, and that everything's connected. And in my opinion, all roads lead to the liver. All roads lead to the liver, and the liver, as far as toxins are concerned, assimilation of nutrients and elimination of toxins and waste. And that's what life is about. That's the simplest form, And so the liver, I think one of the biggest things, like, the reason why I named the chapter "Everything is Connected," because I really can't answer the question without bringing up like all of these different systems that work together for the common good. You know, they're like it's like an ant hive. You know, ants work together for the common good. They're willing to sacrifice themselves for the queen, you know, and for the hive. And that's kind of what your body does. And, you know, I think like page 137, I can answer this by looking at that page. So like when you look at page 137, it is creating a healing protocol for chronic conditions. Over the last 20 years, I have developed I think through listening, you know, listening to dogs, listening to owners, listening in general, to the body and the ecosystem. The number one system in the body for me is the nervous system. And because without a healthy nervous system, you can't heal. It is one of the number one reasons why we're inflamed. It's one of the number one reasons why our livers don't work. It's one of the number one reasons why our lymphatics are slow. It's our nervous systems depict how much we want to engage in life, what we're doing in life, how much stress we have, how much stress we're sharing with our animals. And so working and stabilizing our nervous systems and our dog's nervous systems, it should be the number one thing that you do before you do almost anything. And that I'm talking about chronic disease. And so then after you stabilize the nervous system, you can work on the lymphatics and getting them moving. And, you know, that's another hour-long conversation, but stimulate the lymphatics is very, very important. And then you can gently start helping the liver detoxify better. And then as that's doing it, the gut, you can start working on the gut. And I really feel that most dogs need that in order. And it's all connected. And then you can support digestion and add enzymes. And then you can start working on the problem. You know, and so, but by the time you do all those things, like if you follow my instructions, if you don't have like a super sensitive dog that needs more time, which is 138, it, you know, by the time you start working on, let's say, arthritis or like a Cushing's or Addison's, by the time you actually start working on those, you'll be 2 months into a protocol and the organ health is going to be better and your dog is going to be so much better. Like when you start dealing with lymphatic health, when you start dealing with the nervous system, when you start dealing with the liver, when organ health increases, you have so much better health in general. And, you know, the kidneys should be in here, but so many of the herbs that we deal with the nervous system, the lymphatic system, the digestive system, the liver system, they also have a positive effect on the kidneys. So, you know, we need good organ health in order to have health, but the nervous system is entwined in everything.
Would you say like organ meat, eating obviously like organ meat is going to help with the healing the organs, if that's going to be?
Yeah, I mean, glandular or organ glandulars are good. You know, I think clean glandulars is hard to find. One of the reasons why I love the company Green Juju, you know, they source impeccable, they have impeccable sourcing, and their food, you know, a lot of people can't afford to feed their food as a base food, but you can use it as a topper, and it's 100% organ based and grass fed and grass finished animals.
Yeah, that's great.
You know,
great information.
Yeah, so like I think that glandulars, if you can find clean glandulars, I think it's a good rotation for sure. But yeah, so that's the way I'm going to answer your question about toxic load.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. And I think that also kind of gives people a little bit of a sort of a map, if you will, like to get started if they feel like sort of like overwhelmed by, like if they're tuning into this and they're like, wow, that was a lot of information. That's kind of a great place to start, like you're saying, as a nervous system, then the lymphatics, the liver, you know, digestion, and that's a great way of going about it. Would you say that, did that depict that the way you kind of said it?
Yeah, nervous system, lymphatics, liver, digestion.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, like, you know, when you change a diet, like if I get a dog and I feel like, okay, we need to change the diet, a lot of times I won't change the diet until I get to past the liver part of the protocol, because there's really no point, because we want our dogs assimilating nutrients. And we want those nutrients to be able to get to where they need to go. That's the lymphatics. And the liver, because the liver is taking liquid nutrients right away and through the portal vein. And then the lymphatic system is fat soluble nutrients. And so it's just, it's important to get those systems online before you start making major changes to the diet, in my opinion.
That makes sense. Well, how much of like the nervous system part, how much of that would you say is on the human, like the behavioral contagion as
same thing?
Yeah, so like basically getting your shit together is really just as important as getting your dog's nervous system in order.
Absolutely. The more that you can get your nervous system under control and relaxed, and like I would definitely call it like vagal flexibility. Like, you know, if you can go in and out of fight or flight very easily and shut it off really quickly, that's what you're really kind of going for. But a lot of people, because of our cell phones and things like that, we get stuck in fight or flight. And especially, you know, our political kind of culture right now, and the whole, it's very, you know, everything's up and shock and awe and just this craziness. And I think it's having a really negative effect on people. And so I think any ways that you can help calm your nervous system is going to improve your health, but it's also going to improve your dog's health.
Yeah, I love that. One other thing before we get going here, because this has been an awesome conversation. I'm sure we could talk all day.
I know.
But I know that, like, just talking about the things that you're doing, we love that what you're doing for dogs and for pets, all in all. Your school, can you talk a little bit about Ethos School of Holistic Canine Herbalism? You got this awesome courses.
So I started that late last year. I have some, random classes like on oral health and fleas, and but I'm starting a certification program. It's going to be 4 years long.
Wow. A
lot of people will have a hard time with that because they want to know everything in 5 seconds and just get to the carrot and not learn anything.
Right.
So, that it is what it is, in my opinion, but I am making it affordable. And the first course is coming to a wrap. You can join it anytime. It's the level 1 course, then it'll be level 2, level 3, and level 4. Level 3 and 4 will be much more interactive, and you'll actually have to do a lot of clinical work and things like that, doing protocols and before you can get certified, you have to prove to me that you know what you're doing, because these are dogs' lives that we're dealing with. But I have like right now I'm doing a cancer series intensives. Next Saturday I'm doing osteosarcoma. And so the cancer series has been good. That's in preparation for my next book, which will be on canine cancer. And just starting an online school of canine herbalism. I'm probably next year I'm going to have a in-person retreat, so I'm excited about that too. And just having fun, spreading the word.
That's awesome. Well, if anybody wants to get the information for that, it is called Ethos School of Holistic Canine Herbalism, and that you can find that on
canineherbalism.com.
Yeah. Awesome. I think you had another question?
I was just thinking that'd be great, since you were saying if getting this with the veterinarians, if there was some way, you're saying if it's a 4-year certification, if there was some way to integrate that with whatever their schooling is today, and if they
that would be really great. I have to work on getting it qualified for continuing education credits.
Okay. Yeah.
It's going to happen this year because I'm too busy. If anybody out there wants to help me with that, through the kindness of your heart, let me know. But it's a lot of technical stuff I'm not good at, but I plan on getting it done over the next couple years. I'm also starting like a store certification program.
Cool.
So like a holistic store that's certified. It's just one course, but the people who take the level 1 course can talk about herbs and recommend things so much better. So I'm working with one store to be my first store that's certified, and so I'm going to start certifying holistic stores.
Wow, that's really great stuff.
Yes.
And I know that there's like a lot of sourcing stuff herbs that you've sourced as well on your website.
Yeah, I make a lot of herbal medicine, so I have a lot of stuff that you can purchase on the website. I will be bringing in a lot of dried herbs and glycerates next year after I'm back home.
Yeah.
And my store is open. My assistant and Heather helped me. Heather runs the store, and my assistant. So my store is open while I'm gone. And thanks everyone for supporting me with that, because it really helps. But I have a lot of products on there that I like.
Great.
In my store. That's canineherbalist.com.
Okay.
Do you have your list of tour dates? Because I know you're going on tour for your book.
Yeah, so at the herbaldog.com, which is my book's website, you can see tour dates. There's some that are missing off there. Like I've got a couple in Montana I'm going to add this weekend, and but the dates are on there under tour dates, so you can just scroll through there and see. But I have to add, like, Arizona's not on there. I just solidified Nevada yesterday, and then I gotta figure out when I'm going to Texas and stuff like that. And I'll be doing North Carolina at the end of July, and none of that is on there yet. You have to get the, it's a lot.
Yeah, sure. Well, we'd be happy to share everything when you do post it, and especially when you come to Arizona. I know we are looking forward to meeting you. So
Yeah, for sure.
That'll be awesome.
Well,
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, you have a good rest of your day. Rita Hogan, everybody.
Thank you.
Here.
All right, we'll see you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.